Assalamu alaikum, sir. Uh, Now I'm presenting our presentation. My topic is armed conflict. An armed conflict is a constant incompatibility that concern government and territory where the use of the armed force between the two parties of which at least one in the government of this state result in the latest 25 battle related death in our in one calendar year. An armed conflict exists ever whenever that is a resort to armed force between state of protect armed violence between the government authority of organized armed group or the between such a group within a state. Armed conflict, crime and crime violence. Crime group of profit driven motive account for a sustainable proportion of violence in many areas of armed conflict. Growing reliance by armed non-state actors and showdown of the economical activities contribute of the eurozone of bound arise between the political and criminal violence. The Such a campaigns of criminal violence after a complaint by the intents of the anti-criminal violence by the state deserve a category of their own in crime and conflict as more general the state of study of the organized crime and criminal violence should be more activity integrate into the border analysis of the collective organization armed violation in any beyond and conflict areas. And the international armed conflict, the international armed conflict is an armed conflict between two or more state common article 2 of the 4 1949 Geneva Convention prohibit that they apply to all the cases of the regland where or of any other armed conflict which may arise between two or more of the high priorities, even if the state of the year is not recognized by the of one of them, rather than where the Geneva Convention used the term armed conflict to highlight that the determination whether a armed conflict exists within the meaning of the common article depended on the prevailing circumstances, not the subject view of the parties of the conflict. Similarly, the law or lawfulness of the resort to armed force under just does not have any impact of the determination whether on not international armed conflict exists. The other next to incident. We all know that the Pakistan and Kashmir, the Pakistan Navy will year arm the petrol plane carrying the 16 people on border was shot down by the Indian Air Force for the alleged the violation of airspace. The episode took place the run of the Kurchi on 10 August 1999, just a month after a Kargil, where a creation of the tense of the atmosphere between the India and Pakistan. The foreign diplomats note that the plane fall instant the Pakistan territory, although it may have crossed the border. However, they also believe that the India reaction was the unjustified. Pakistan later the logged a compensation claim at the International Court of Justice, accused the India for the incident, but the court dismissed the case in its split decision, ruling the court did not have any justice. The 2011 India-Pakistan border shooting incident took place between the 13 August and 1 September 2011 across the line of the control of the Kapara district and Nilama Villa, resulting in five Indian soldiers and three Pakistani soldiers being killed. Both parties have the different account of the incident, such accusing the other the hostage and 2013 India-Pakistan border incident the Mandhar sector of the Jammu Kashmir due to the behind of the Indian soldiers. A total of the 22 soldiers in 12 Indian and 10 Pakistani died. 2014 16 Indian Pakistani border as at the Arnia sector of the Jammu Kashmir due to the killing of the one soldier border security force and the injured three soldiers of the four civilians by the Pakistani range and the prevention of the criminal response of the rape and other forms of the sexual violence during the armed conflict. The rape and the other forms of the sexual violence and cause the physical and physiological harm of their victims and the women, girls, men, and boys and have a direct impact and their families, the communities. Rape and other forms of sexual violence when the committed of the construct of the armed conflict, either in the international and non-international construction violence of the international human law ISL and the definition of the rape and the other forms of the sexual violence under the international law. Rape and other forms of the sexual violence or the prohibition of the norms international treaties. However, no international treaties, including the Fourth Geneva Convention of the 1949, there are the additional protocol of the 1977, content of the precise definition of the rape and sexual violence, and the state of the ad hoc international criminal tribunal recognizes rape and criminal rape as a crime, but do not provide the specific definition. They are for a tribunal have they are in the justified develop their own definition. The state of the International Criminal Court (ICC) contain of the one definition, but man on woman can under the old definition be victim of the of a rape of the sexual violence. Rape. The International Criminal Tribunal for the beyond ICTR first defined a rape in the Anjura case in 1998. A physical investigation of a sexual nature committed the person under the circumstances which the with the courtship and the tribunal becomes of the courtship of the circumstance as the element of the crime that did not need to evidence of the physical force threat the imitation extortion and other forms of abuse which prey of the fair dispersion may constitute of the corners the definition of rape being a constituted by the sexual penetration, however slight, of the virgin of the victim by the parents of the perpetrator or any other object used or used by the perpetrator of the mouth of the victim of the um, parents of the perpetrator where is the sexual predator occurs without the consent of the victim. The appeal chamber of the ICTY confirmed the definition of the following year. The aid that the force and threat of the force provided clear evidence of no consent, but force is not element par as rape. The other is sexual violence. Sexual violence can be defined as the act of the sexual nature that do not necessary to record the penetration of covered the much broader range of the acts than rapes. The international armed conflict, the situation of the international armed conflict, the following provision of the relevance of the provision against rape and the other forms of the sexual violence. And the Article 12 and the Article the general protection of the own, the Sikh and the sheepwork of the armed forces, which the special reference of the women Article 30, Article 13 and 14, GC on the general protection of the prison of where with the special reference to women, the Article 14 subsection 2, Article 27 the subsection 2 GC, for which the explicit prohibits that the woman shall be especially protected against the attack on the honor of the particularly against the rape and force, the protection of or any from of the incident of the assault, the non-international armed conflict, the institution of the non-international armed conflict, Article 3 common of the 4th Geneva Convention of the 1949, the content of the specific prohibition against rape or other forms of the sexual violence, but the categories of the demand that a person not talking activity part in the hostage by the trade humanity in the circumstance without the adverse distinction of based on sexual and sexual, for the example, therefore equal protect women and men as the concept of the absolute obligation regarding human treatment, a common Article 3 particular prohibition violence of life and person, including the cruel treatment or the torture and otherwise upon personally dignity and specialty, humanity and regarding treatment. Rape and other forms of the sexual violence or detention when the deprived of their liberty in the connection with an armed conflict, women, girls, men, and boys, the particularly vulnerable to rape and other forms of the sexual violence. During the international armed conflict, person who are entitled to person or POW state benefit from the protection under the GC, the pro POW must in particular or at all time the humanity of the treated by the protect the particular against act the violation and against incident of the public uh, cures, public reaction and the whole the the whole uh, the main what the laws in armed conflict are governed the principle by international and humanity law, which is also known as the laws of where IHL is a set of rules either codified the treaties of the recognized third customary that limit the permissible behavior of the parties to a conflict. The serious violation of the IHL are the war crimes. The primary aims of the ISL are the minimize human suffering and to the protect the civilian population and those former combatant who are a longer directly participate in a hostage such a person or personas of where the next is the conclusion. The main global trend in the armed conflict and the other forms of the organizational political violence display defines the dynamics to those show by global trend in criminal violence. Criminal violence is in an inconceivable more frequent and far more which spread than armed conflict or one side violence against the civilians. The declines of the sustainable in the overall number of the armed conflict constant without a slow or but a steady increase in overall global crime level in recent year, as well as a lack of any decline in global religion and sub-religion level of the criminal violence. The disturbance of the criminal violence around the world also show that the country religion that display the highest rate of the criminal violence are the not necessarily those most heavily affected by the major armed conflict. Even the thought the insanity and the modes of the armed violence in those areas approximately those topical of the classic armed conflict, the protect and instead conflict of the confrontation, they involve a purely criminal organization, whether the violence in the armed at the state other the non-state grow up or civilian, and the state required the further empirical and the they get research of the deserve of the category of its own the crime and conflict analyze, and the in this explain why the fight against the organized crime including translation uh, uh, transnational crime in such a settings should not be discovered for general conflict the resolution effect. It also implies that finding political solution to armed conflict should take a priority in most complex and the protect conflict setting, as it the scene of the crow known for the revealing of the or extending the functionally state the capacity and those essential for the effectively tracking organized organized crime. Thank 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 you, thank you, sir. That's all today.